Behold, the days are coming when I will make a new covenant, not like the covenant I made with their fathers, even though my covenant which they broke, even though I was their husband. Then the descendants of Israel will also cease to be a nation before me. This is the new covenant. And that's exactly what Stephen is saying. This Jesus said he will destroy this place. He will. And what did they do? They responded. The high priest responded. So here we go with the high priest again. The very guy that got Jesus killed is now accusing and is the one in front of and putting to trial his apostles and disciples. And he said, "Are these things so?" And Stephen replied with, "You stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, you do always resist the Holy Ghost as your fathers did. Which of the prophets have not your fathers persecuted? And they have slain them, which showed before the coming of the just one, of whom you have now been the betrayers and murderers of." Well, when they heard these things, the high priests were cut to the heart, and they gnashed on him with their teeth. And they cast him out of the city and stoned him. And the witnesses laid down their clothes at the young man's feet, whose name was Saul. And Saul was consenting unto this death. And at that time there was a great persecution against the church, which was at Jerusalem. And they were all scattered abroad except for the apostles. Well, this is Revelation 7:14. These are they which came out of the great tribulation and have washed their robes and made them white with the blood of the Lamb. This is what Acts is talking about, Saul initiating, and at that time there was a great persecution against the church. Now we go on into Acts, continuing, as for this Saul, he made havoc against the church, entering into every house and hailing men and women and committing them to prison. He went door to door looking for Christians and then had them thrown into prison. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went back to the high priest, because that was, again, who was in charge. The high priest was in charge of the attack and the persecution on the church, and desired of him letters to Damascus to those synagogues, that if he may find any of this way, whether they were of men or women, that he might bring them back in bounds to Jerusalem. So he wanted to go out into Damascus and find even more Christians that he could bring back and put into jail. For as it is written, for thy sake we are killed all day long. We are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. That is the basic foundation of context that we need to understand Revelation 12. We have Herod the king, who at the birth of Jesus tried to kill him and wipe him out, but because the angel of the Lord saved him through a vision, he was able to flee into the wilderness, into Egypt, for a time. Then when that time passed, Herod passed on and died, and Jesus came back into the city. He started preaching. Then Herod's son began another persecution against the church, the prophets, and against Jesus, as we will continue to see. And then we also saw the high priests get in on this, and they actually killed Jesus, which led to a further persecution of all of his followers, to the point where they were going door to door looking for them, throwing them in jail, killing them daily, and the great persecution was upon them. Revelation 12. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. So we've been through this. This is covenantal, righteous Israel. This is the Israel that is a covenantally faithful and true. They believe in it. This is the perfected thing. And we've been over this. Why? This is important because she was being with child and travailing in birth and pained to be delivered. So here we have covenantal Israel about to give birth to Jesus. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. And behold, a great red dragon. Now, heaven doesn't mean the stars. We've been through this. The great wonder in heaven, just as the covenant of the heaven and earth explained, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, which was Israel, another great wonder in heaven, but this time it is a great red dragon, and having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, what we're going to do is familiarize ourselves with this language, because the language of the book of Revelation answers who this is. So when we take a look at this, Revelation 13:1 gives us this. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, so the nations, and I saw a beast, or nation, rise up out of the nations, and having 7 heads and 10 horns. So here we have the beast with 7 and 10, and here we have the red dragon with 7 and 10. Now, we're going to use Scripture to interpret Scripture. This isn't going to be my opinion. We're going to let the Bible tell us what this means so that we're not getting all mixed up in here. Revelation chapter 17. An angel saying to John, I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sits upon the waters. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman who sat upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Well, this is the beast we were just looking at, obviously, because it has 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his head the names of blasphemy. So Revelation 17 is clearly describing this beast. Verse 5, and upon her, the woman sitting on this beast, upon her forehead, well, we know that the number of the beast is either on the hand or the forehead, so the number of the beast upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. And the angel said unto me, I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. So the angel is actually now going to tell us who the woman is, who the beast is. So here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue for a short time. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings for 1 hour with the beast. Now Rome is interesting because 7 hills of Rome are groups of hills on or about which the ancient city of Rome was built. One of the best known nicknames for the Rome is called the City on 7 Hills, or the City of 7 Hills. This is, of course, because the ancient city was built on and between 7 hills, all of which make up the part of the core of the modern Italian capital. So the beast had 7 heads, the 7 mountains. To John, it was explained that the 7 heads represented not only 7 mountains on which the woman is seated, but also 7 kings, 5 of whom which had fallen. 1 is, the one has not yet come. So 5 of whom have fallen. 1 is, the other has not yet come, and when he does, he must remain only a little while. Well, Rome is the city of history, famous for the 7 mountains. The first century Rome celebrated the feast of the 7-hilled city. Now, also according to Josephus, Dio Cassius, Suetonius, and other historians, the first 5 Roman emperors were Julius Caesar, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, and Claudius. The 6th was Nero. Galba was following him, and he only reigned for only 6 months before he was murdered. So when we take a look at the prophecy, we have there are 7 kings, 5 of whom were fallen. And when the book of Revelation was written, Julius Caesar had fallen, Augustus had fallen, Tiberius had fallen, Caligula had fallen, Claudius had fallen. All 5 had fallen, and it says, and 1 is, while John was writing that. And when John was writing it, Nero Caesar was the emperor of the Roman Empire. Then after him, we got Galba, who only lived 6 months before he was murdered. So just as it says, and the other one has not yet come, and when he does, he must remain only a little while. So Rome and the emperors completely are identified perfectly in this description. On top of that, it says that this woman that was riding the beast, well, and I saw the woman, and she was drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. Which is interesting because Jesus said to the Pharisees, "You serpents, you generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them you will kill and crucify, and some of them you shall scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city, that upon you," who? The Pharisees, the scribes, and the high priest, the priesthood, that upon them will come all righteous blood shed upon the earth, from righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah. Verily I say unto you, all these things will come upon this generation. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to you. Jesus directly says that they are the ones who kill the prophets. On top of that, we also remember that that was the accusation given to them by Stephen. We also see in Luke 13:33, we get this interaction recorded with this language. That same day there came certain of the Pharisees saying unto him, "Get out of here and depart, for Herod will kill you." And Jesus said to them, "Go ye and tell that fox, behold, I cast out devils, I do cures day and today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected. Nevertheless, I must walk today and tomorrow and the day following, for it cannot be that a prophet perish outside of Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem killeth who kills the prophets and stones them that are sent to thee." So when we read in Revelation, "And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and of the blood of the martyrs of Jesus," Jesus directly identifies that to be Jerusalem when he says, "For it cannot be that a prophet perish out of Jerusalem." Revelation 17:12, "And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast." Now remember, when Herod's dynasty was broken up, it was broken up into 10 kingdoms. Now Josephus lists, and this is fascinating because Josephus lists 10 newly appointed Jewish generals. The following information is taken from Josephus' War of the Jews, Book 2, Chapter 20. The Jewish religious leaders and nationalists knew that a full-scale Roman revenge was inevitable. Indeed, Nero officially declared war against Israel in February 67, sending Vespasian and his general. So these Jewish leaders got together in great numbers in the temple and appointed a great many generals for a war. And Josephus reveals exactly 10 generals were appointed, and some of them were high priests. And this is the list of the 10 generals. So here we have, straightforward, we have Herod, his kingdom being broken into 10, and they being filled by the high priest, by against the war, the coming war, the Jewish wars. So we have and that's exactly what it said. So we have the 7 hills. We have the fulfillment of the dragon being 7 mountains. We have that with Rome. We also have the 7 kings, perfectly lining up with the history of Rome. We have the history of Herod and the disciples and his governors. You can see the list on the screen, fulfilling the 10 kingdoms which hadn't had power yet. And we have the testimony of the blood of the prophets and the apostles being shed by Jerusalem, identifying who these players are. So Revelation 13:2 says, "And the beast, which we are now supposing is Rome, which I saw was like a leopard, a bear, and a lion. And the dragon gave him his great power, his seat, and authority." Well, if we read this as Rome and Herod, it actually makes a lot of sense and Rome was like a leopard and a bear and a lion, and it was Herod who gave him his power over Israel, over the temple. And the lion, the bear, and the leopard are exactly the prophecies that come out of Zechariah and Daniel about the end times and who it will be. Well, the lion was Babylon with a head of gold. Remember that. The bear and the leopard, which then led to the final beast, which is told, and the new beast was like unto a leopard, a lion, and a bear. The leopard, the lion, the bear, and now the new beast, which is Rome. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast and able to make war with him? So Israel followed King Herod, who put all of Israel under subjection to Rome, whom they submitted. Revelation chapter 17. And upon her forehead was the name written, Mystery Babylon the Great. Revelation 14:9. If any man worships the beast and his image, and receives his mark in his forehead or his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and the presence of the Lamb. So here we have, if any man worships the beast and his image, will receive this mark. Well, we have this situation, don't we, where King Herod and Rome are now united, and the children of Israel are being forced to submit to Rome and his symbolisms, to do what he wants. In fact, his coin had his image on it, and you would actually have to get permission and a signature and a piece of paper that you would present to buy and sell. And just as it says, and he shall be tormented with the fire and brimstone. And that's exactly what the judgment was on Jerusalem when we've covered this before. That's why I'm just referencing it here, is that's how Jerusalem did end up getting destroyed. Rome came in and set them on fire, literally burnt down the temple and Jerusalem. Revelation 21:10. And he carried me away and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem. So now we get parallel imagery here as Jerusalem as the great city. Revelation 14:8. Another angel said, Babylon is fallen, the great city, because she made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Which again is chapter 17. And upon her head, right? And when we read verse 2, with whom the kings of the earth had committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth had been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So here we have Babylon being referred to as the great city, which we have identified as Jerusalem. Now, Revelation 16:19 clears this up with, and the great city, that great Babylon, came into remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Well, who is this Babylon, this great city? And why would it come to memory? Because Isaiah prophesied against Babylon, saying, You shall take up this proverb up against the king of Babylon. How has the oppressor ceased? So how has the one who's oppressing everyone come to an end? How has the golden city ceased? For I will rise up against them, and cut off from Babylon the name, the remnant, and the son and the nephew, saith the Lord. So we have a parallel judgment. We hear in Revelation that the great harlot is going to be judged just like Babylon, and that judgment of Babylon is going to be cutting off Babylon's name and their remnant, which again is what was brought to the high priests by Stephen in his trial, that the descendants of Israel will also cease to be a nation forever. Revelation 17:18. And the woman which you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. So the woman who is sitting on the beast, so the woman who's riding Rome, is the great city Jerusalem, according to the book of Revelation. And he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city. And the city was pure gold, so just as was charged against Babylon, here we have Israel being depicted as the golden city, which is actually Zechariah. And when we see this, we can understand that this is a big theme that has been actually all the way through the Old Testament up until this point, where we read in Zechariah chapter 2, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. Then said I, where are you going? And he said to me, to measure Jerusalem, to see what is the breadth thereof and the length thereof. Oh, deliver yourself, Zion, that dwells with the daughter of Babylon. Zion united with Babylon. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And in her was found the blood of the prophets and the saints and of all that were slain on the earth. 18:24, 17:6, the martyrs of Jesus. Revelation 18:2. And he cried out, Babylon the Great, Jerusalem is fallen, because it has become a habitation of devils. Come out of her, my people, that you may not be partakers of her sins, that you receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached up unto heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Standing off far for the fear of her torment, the apostles who have fled, everyone who has listened to Jesus in Matthew 24, he said, when you see the city surrounded, flee to where? Did he say get out and run? And he said to the people in Matthew 24, flee to the hills in Judea. So it was a local event. This isn't a universal judgment. This is stand far off and you can watch it happen. Just as Jesus said, run from the city and you can see it happen. Standing far off from the fear of her torment, alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. This is Paul saying this, who is an apostle. Revelation 18:20, rejoice over her, you in heaven, and you, holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. So here we have Jerusalem slaughtering the prophets, slaughtering the disciples, led by the high priests. Who is Jerusalem? And here we have Paul saying, let us not fight back. God will have his day of judgment over her. And in Revelation 18:20, he did, saying that the holy apostles and the prophets have been avenged. So this is a direct reference to the immediacy of the time of the apostles and the disciples. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea. Thus with violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. Which again is, then the descendants of Israel will also cease to be a nation before me, forever. So let's read this again. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, Herod, king of Israel, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon those heads. And his tail drew a third of the part of the stars of heaven. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to be devoured her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. Oh, I got it back to back with a big screen. Should have read it from here. So, another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, the great red dragon, Herod, king of Israel, mixed with Rome. Now, his tail did sweep down a third of the stars of heaven. Well, we understand from the last video that the stars of heaven are referring to the children of Israel. We had Israel interpret the dream of Joseph. When Joseph had the dream saying that the sun and the moon and the stars bowed down to him, it was Joseph who became Israel, whose 12 sons were the 12 tribes of Israel. And he said, you think your mom and your dad and your 12 siblings are going to bow to you? And they were referred to as the stars of heaven. And here we have, behold, Herod, who put down a third of the stars of heaven. and cast them to the earth. Well, we just read that in Matthew 2. It was Herod who slaughtered all the innocents under the age of 2 and cast them out. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth. Why? This is the picture of Herod standing before Jesus about to be born, trying to find him, but he couldn't. So he killed all the innocents. And how do we know it was Jesus? Because of verse 5. She gave birth to a male child who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, but her child is caught up to God and to his throne. So as we read, and being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country, their own way. And when they had departed, the angel of the Lord said to Joseph and Jesus, get out of there. And what did he do? Herod saw that he was mocked of the wise men and was exceedingly wroth and sent forth and slew all the children. And that's exactly what we're reading in verse 4. Now, verse 5, the male child is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. Psalm 2, God announcing, he has said to me, you are my son, today I have fathered you. Ask me of it, and I will certainly give you the nations as your inheritance, and the ends of the earth as your possession. And you shall break them with a rod of iron, and shatter them like earthenware. And it also says in the scripture that he was caught up to God and his throne. Well, Acts 1:9, and when he had spoken these things while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received them out of their sight. Luke 24, and it came to pass, while he blessed them, he was parted from them and was carried up into heaven. So there's no doubt that this Revelation 12 is talking about Herod seeking the life of Jesus that was being birthed by the covenant Israel in 12:1, and because he couldn't, he was wroth and went forth and slew the children, which was a third of the stars of Israel. Now we need to take a look at the word angel, because we're going to take a look at the red dragon's angels. So in order to do that, what does the word angel mean? The first thing people think of when they hear the word angel is a being with wings, a supernatural being. Well, the word angel actually just means the word messenger. So when we hear an angel being sent, we're hearing a messenger is being sent. So when we read and continue on, and there was a war in heaven, Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought against his angels, and prevailed not, neither was there a place found any more in heaven. And the dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast down to the earth, and the angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying, now is come salvation and strength in the kingdom of our God and the power of the Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. So let's break this down. And there was a war in heaven. So now we have a war between Michael and his messengers and against the dragon. So who fought against the dragon? Well, we already know that was the apostles and the prophets and the disciples. And Michael. So who is Michael? Well, Isaiah 9:6 says, for us, unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called the Prince of Peace. We are all familiar with this. This is the famous prediction of the Messiah. Daniel 9:25. Now therefore, and understand, know and therefore understand, that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince. So we have a direct reference to the Messiah and the Prince of Peace. We have a direct reference to the Messiah the Prince. Then in Daniel 12:1, and at that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince. So the Messiah, the great prince, the Prince of Peace, at that time the Messiah, Michael, stands up, the great prince, which stands for the people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was. There was, since there was a nation even to that same time. So when Michael stands up, when the Messiah stands up, that's when the tribulation took place, when Jesus appeared. And at that time the people shall be delivered. Jesus was the deliverer. He was the one that at that time established the new covenant, delivering them. And what does it go on to say? Everyone that shall not be found written in the book, the Lamb's book of life. The Lamb is Jesus. Daniel 9:26. Afterwards, the Messiah shall be cut off, and the people that shall come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. So now we have the prince is the Messiah, named Michael. After he arises, causes the great tribulation, then Jerusalem and the temple will be destroyed. Literally what took place upon Jerusalem and the temple when Rome did it. Like literally. The name Michael is actually a Hebrew name, which means who is like God, or gift from God. Well, interestingly enough, Michael meaning who is like God, well, John goes and expresses Jesus speaking in John 5:18 through 24, saying, "For this reason, therefore, the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him, because he not only was breaking the Sabbath, but also was calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God." So now here's Jesus making himself like God. Truly I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of himself unless it is something he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, these things the Son also does in the same way. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself is doing, and the Father will show him greater works than these, so that you will be amazed. For just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, so the Son also gives life to whom he wishes. For not even the Father judges anyone, but has given all judgment unto the Son, so that all will honor the Son just. So all will honor the Son like they honor the Father. The one who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. So we can't get a greater description of God and Jesus and their likeness. Who is the Messiah? Who is Michael? And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought against his angels. Jesus and his apostles fought against Herod and the high priests and the priesthood, and prevailed not, and neither was a place found any more for them in heaven. Herod and his angels were removed from the covenant. This is referred to as death, just as Adam. We're familiar with that. I'm just going to expand on it for 1 second. So just as when Adam was kicked out of the garden, there was no longer found a place for them in Eden. And just as now they're kicked, Jerusalem and Israel as a whole, the priesthood was being kicked out of the covenant in the exact same manner. There was no longer found a place for them anymore in heaven. Revelation 12:4, and his tail drew the third parts of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. Well, that's the terms that were used to describe the children that Herod slew, was being cast to the earth. Why is that a big deal? Because that's what we're talking about in this war. Revelation 12:11, and they overcame him how? By the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. So they won. The battle that we see here taking place between Jesus and his apostles against Herod and his apostles was decided by the argument of Jesus' blood. Now, Revelation 12:9 is very fascinating because we get this language of cast out, which we were just talking about. They were cast out to the earth. Herod, the great red dragon, was cast out. That old serpent. Now, this is interesting because this is another reference to Genesis and Adam. There was the old serpent, and he caused his family, Adam's family, to be cast out. And here what do we have? We have Herod, who's cast out, causing the same problems for Israel. Now he was called. Now this is very important to understand. Herod was called the devil and Satan. It doesn't say, and the great dragon which was cast out is the devil and Satan. It says, and the great dragon was called devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world, and he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So let's deal with which deceiveth the whole world. Luke 2:1, and it came to pass in those days that there should be that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. Well, we understand that Caesar Augustus did not have authority over the entire world. In fact, he could not tax the entire world. This is a phrase that actually means the whole world under the authority. And it's used multiple times in Scripture, actually, when we read it. So when we're talking about in this context, and it came to pass in those days that from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed, we see this phrase meaning the whole world under the authority. Same in Revelation 12:9, and the great dragon which deceived the whole world. This is talking about the world under his authority. The great dragon deceived all of Judea, all of Israel, all of the temple, is what it's saying. And he was cast out. Let's now deal with that cast out. We were talking about that. And he was cast out to the earth. So they were separated from the covenant. Now we're going to deal with number 3 here. Herod and his angels and what they were called. Satan. Now the word Satan is the word Satan. And it actually doesn't mean angelic evil beast. It doesn't mean spiritual entity. It doesn't mean any of that. The word Satan means adversary, one who withstands. Adversary in general, personal, or national. It just means someone who is who is adverse, who is in opposition, an opponent. So this word Satan, is an adversary. And fascinatingly enough, the very first time the word Satan appears in the Bible, or Satan, the very first time it's actually being attributed to Jesus. And God's anger was kindled because he went. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. And that's actually in the Hebrew the word Satan. So here we have God having his anger kindled, which we know as a reference to Deuteronomy, where his anger was kindled because they were not following the law. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way as Satan against him. We actually see this continue on in Samuel, where we get the princes of the Philistines were wroth. And the princes of the Philistines said to him, make this fellow, this man, return, that he may go against his place, which thou hast appointed him, and let him not go down with us to battle. Unless in the battle, because in the battle, what we don't want, lest in the battle he be a adversary, a Satan to us. That's the exact word Satan. Again, it's the word Satan being attributed to a man. We have this event as well. For in 1 Kings we read, therefore the Lord said to Solomon, because you have not kept my covenant and my statutes, I will surely tear the kingdom from you. The Lord, and then he goes off, notwithstanding, I will not do it in your days for David your father's sake, but I will tear it out from the hand of your son. However, I will not tear away all of the kingdom, but I will give one tribe to your son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. And the Lord raised up a Satan to Solomon, an adversary. That's the word Satan again. And who was this Satan? The Lord raised up Satan to Solomon. Hadad the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom. A man. So God forms an enemy against him. That enemy is a man, but is attributed Satan, just as we saw in the previous scriptures. Chapter 109 in Psalms is very fascinating as well, as it reads, hold not thy peace, O God of my praise, for the mouth of the wicked and the mouth of the deceitful are opened against me. They have spoken against me with a lying tongue. They compassed me about also the words of hatred, and fought against me without a cause. For my love, they are my Satans. But I give myself unto prayer, and they have rewarded me evil for good and hatred for my love. Set thou a wicked man over him, and let Satan stand at his right hand. So here we have adversaries, which is the word Satan in the Hebrew, and here we have the translators putting the word Satan here, even though they're the exact same word. So when this was written by the psalmist, both words are the word Satan. And when we read verse 6, set thou a wicked man over him. Set a wicked man, not an angel. Set a wicked man over him, and let Satan stand at his right hand. And here we have the exact same situation, raising up an adversary against your opponent. Revelation 12:9. And Herod, the great red dragon, was cast out, that old serpent called Satan, called the adversary, and his angels, his messengers, the priesthood, the rulers of the high places, the kingdom, the temple, accusers of the brethren, the one who constantly accused them of being sin, of being rejecting of the covenant of Moses. It was the priesthood who challenged, persecuted, and killed the Christians. They are the rulers in the high places, meaning not the throne of the king, but the high places of the temple and the things that brought you close to God, the high places. Luke 13:31. The same day there came certain of the Pharisees, saying unto him, Get thee out, and depart, or Herod will kill you. Well, that's Herod's messengers. Herod the great dragon and his angels. His angels, the word angel is messenger.